It's an intoxicating idea, taking a heavy luxury vehicle out to the desert, opening the throttle, and driving something that looks aggressive and feels unstoppable. It's the ultimate compromise for the enthusiast with a family, securing the planted, menacing stance of a supercar, but keeping enough cargo space in the back for the kids and a week's worth of groceries. Take this Volvo XC60. By design, it's a sensible, highly engineered Swedish family hauler, but here it's been pushed to the absolute edge. Look at how closely the body sits over the tires, and notice that massive aftermarket diffuser extending off the rear bumper. That creates an immediate mechanical conflict. You are taking a platform engineered strictly for safety, comfort, and predictability, and forcing it to wear the rigid, aggressive setup of a street fighter. Getting this exact aesthetic isn't a simple bolt-on upgrade. To build it, you actually have to strip away the exact physical characteristics that make an SUV useful in the first place. This decision tree lays out options for an aggressive driver. Buy a factory-tuned model or modify a luxury base yourself. Look at the final dollar amounts. Adding custom wheels, lowered suspension, and body kits makes your total spend perfectly match the factory performance car. So why take the modification route? Because factory cars look exactly like factory cars. Customizing a base model is a guaranteed way to drive something aesthetically exclusive to you. But that exclusivity has an invisible price tag. We need to step away from the cinematic reels and evaluate what it actually requires to drive this setup on a standard Tuesday morning commute. Every single visual modification you apply on this path acts as a direct physical tax on the vehicle's daily livability. Let's start with the foundation, the stance. This shot highlights a massive set of 22-inch aftermarket wheels wrapped in ultra-low profile tires. The visual benefit is obvious. It completely fills out the wheel arches, pushes the track out, and gives the Volvo an incredibly planted look. This cross-section shows the physical compromise. On the left, a standard SUV tire has a thick sidewall that flexes to absorb pothole impacts. On the right, the ultra-low profile tire has almost no rubber to compress when hitting that exact same rough patch of road. That kinetic energy transfers straight through that thin strip of rubber and slams directly into your expensive metal rim, dramatically increasing the risk of bent wheels. The mechanical result is a ride quality that feels distinctly brittle. Every expansion joint, manhole cover, and uneven asphalt patch shutters directly up the steering column and straight into your spine. You rarely see this side of the build online. The reality of driving this setup through poorly maintained city streets feels a lot more like this. When you size up your wheels this aggressively, you are actively choosing to sacrifice your passengers' physical comfort for the sake of visual impact. Now look at the lower half of the vehicle. Notice how tightly the aftermarket side skirts and rear bumper lip hug the pavement. The performance logic here comes directly from dedicated sports cars. Dropping the suspension lowers the center of gravity, tightening up the handling and significantly reducing body roll in the corners. This quadrant chart plots aesthetic impact against daily livability. Lowering the suspension and adding an aero kit scores incredibly high on aesthetics, but plummets into the negative on livability, primarily because you lose your functional ground clearance. Standard city infrastructure becomes an active threat. Steep driveways, neighborhood speed bumps, and concrete parking blocks will easily crack that expensive fiberglass lip if you do not drive highly defensively everywhere. Taking this down a rough dirt road to a campsite is entirely off the table. Those low-hanging aerodynamic pieces essentially act as fragile snowplows, catching every single rock and rut in their path. You've effectively taken a highly capable vehicle and turned it into a heavy station wagon that cannot clear a grocery store curb. The visual aggression is usually paired with auditory modifications. This shot highlights the aftermarket quad exhaust installed on the build. Hearing a deep, throaty growl on startup holds a lot of emotional appeal. It matches the menacing look and makes a quick run to the store feel like a dedicated track day. The trade-off hits the moment you merge onto the highway. A modified open exhaust often introduces a persistent, low-frequency drone that reverberates through the cabin at steady cruising speeds. Volvo engineers spent thousands of hours meticulously soundproofing the XC60 to create a quiet, isolated sanctuary. Bolting on an aggressive exhaust completely erases that engineering effort. Let's bring that quadrant chart back. Powertrain and exhaust mods score high on auditory impact, but they come attached to a severe financial liability warning. Altering these components gives the dealership a direct path to voiding your factory warranty. You are paying money to deliberately increase cabin noise, while simultaneously taking on the entire financial risk if a critical engine or suspension component fails down the line. You simply cannot have a supercar stance and absolute SUV pragmatism at the same time. The physics don't allow it. This scorecard maps modifications directly to driver lifestyles. This route is perfect for aesthetics-first buyers who prioritize self-expression, smooth roads, and self-insured budgets. Avoid this if you are a pragmatic optimizer demanding ride comfort, rough weather hauling, or a factory warranty. The success of a custom build depends entirely on aligning the modifications with the reality of your actual daily commute, rather than just your social media aspirations. Let's be honest, the appeal of a highly personalized, unique vehicle is undeniable. It makes a bold statement that a standard factory car never will. But you have to separate the cinematic fantasy from the mechanical reality. Those aggressive angles and massive wheels introduce a daily friction that you will have to live with long after the novelty wears off. If you're on the fence, go test drive a factory performance SUV first. See if a heavily engineered, fully warrantied version of Aggression satisfies that itch before you start cutting into a base luxury model. Remember, bolting on aftermarket parts is rarely a strict upgrade. It is a deliberate, calculated exchange of utility for style. Make sure you are choosing your compromises deliberately, so the vehicle in your driveway actually